What's up, everyone? This is Alex Baker, and I'm talking about vitamin B12. Is it a miracle vitamin? So, what about vitamin B12? Vitamin B12 is a part of the water-soluble vitamin B complex, which functions in the working of certain enzymes within the body. Some of the major functions: it's important for brain and nervous system function, as well as the synthesis of red blood cells. Obviously, those are very important things. It's also an essential vitamin, meaning the body needs it in order to function properly. I found this quote from an article that I found, which I thought was kind of interesting. It says, vitamin B12, commonly known as cyanocobalamin, is the most chemically complex of all the vitamins. The structure of vitamin B12 is based on a corin ring, which is similar to the porphyrin ring found in heme, chlorophyll, and cytochrome, and has two of the pyrrole rings directly bonded. Obviously, we can see that the chemical structure for vitamin B12 is just a little bit complex. So, what are some of the benefits / functions of vitamin B12, and what foods can I find it in? As far as the benefits and functions go, vitamin B12 helps with red blood cell formation, very important. It can help prevent birth defects. It supports bone health and can prevent osteoporosis. It reduces the risk of macular degeneration, which is an eye disease that affects our vision. Helps to combat depression. Basically, it does this through synthesizing or metabolizing serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter within the brain that helps with depression and mood disorders. So people who are depressed can have very low levels of serotonin. Vitamin B12 can help prevent the loss of neurons, meaning it's been linked a lot of different times through various studies showing that it could help to prevent dementia. Vitamin B12 is also associated with helping to give us an energy boost, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later in my presentation. It's also important to improve heart health through decreasing homocysteine, which is an amino acid consumed in high amounts that has been linked to heart disease. For the RDA and the upper limit, for males and females, 14 years and upwards, 2.4 micrograms per day is what is recommended, which is, it's not really that much. Pregnant women require just a little bit more, at 2.6 micrograms per day, and lactating women require the most at 2.8 micrograms per day. And currently, vitamin B12 doesn't have an upper limit that has been established or listed. So for those who are vitamin B12 deficient, what could you potentially be experiencing? One of the things is megaloblastic anemia. This is where the bone marrow produces unusually large, oddly shaped, immature red blood cells. Now that's going to be a problem because blood clots can form and these blood cells aren't going to flow through the body in the way that normal blood cells do, which clearly is a problem. People who are vitamin B12 deficient can also experience fatigue, weakness, constipation, loss of appetite, weight loss, and there's neurological changes that can occur. So numbness and tingling in the hands and feet, difficulty maintaining balance, depression, confusion, dementia, poor memory, etc. For vitamin B12 toxicity, as I had mentioned in a previous slide, there hasn't been any official upper limit that has been set showing or a specific toxicity of what vitamin B12 is. With that being said, very, very high intakes of vitamin B12 has been associated with a few negative side effects, including acne, rosacea. I think I said that wrong, but basically what that is where facial blood vessels become enlarged. There's also been potential negative outcomes with very high intakes of vitamin B12 with those who have diabetes or different kidney issues. Vitamin B12's role in metabolism, I found this interesting. I found in an article it said vitamin B12 plays an important role in supplying essential methyl groups for protein and DNA synthesis. Clearly, that's a very, very important thing. Our entire body is basically made of different protein, and obviously, from what we've learned in biology classes in the past, DNA is essentially in everything. Vitamin B12 is also bound to a protein in food, and hydrochloric stomach acid releases vitamin B12 during the digestion of protein. For myself, the most interesting thing that I learned was
your final
in regards to vitamin B12 deficiency. So I found an article that talked about vitamin B12 deficiency occurring as we get older, and it's not necessarily due to not consuming enough products that contain vitamin B12, but it's rather more associated with just getting older. And the mechanism behind this is around the age of 50, roughly 20% of people will develop an atrophy of the stomach lining. So along with this atrophy, parietal cells that line the stomach are destroyed. So parietal cells produce a protein called intrinsic factor, and vitamin B12 binds to intrinsic factor and gets absorbed into the small intestine and into our body. So as parietal cells are destroyed along with the stomach lining, we are unable to absorb as much vitamin B12 as we used to. One of the highlights that I found from the media, which is also another interesting thing, is people have this idea that taking vitamin B12 itself gives you energy, and that's false. Food is the only substance that will give us energy as humans. But vitamin B12, it's among the vitamin B group that does help convert dietary energy, so food, into ATP, which is the form of energy that our bodies use in a series of complex chemical reactions carried out by the mitochondria in cells. Now, for myself, as far as an aha moment, as I was reading and looking up different things, I kind of came to the conclusion that vitamin B12 isn't some kind of magic thing that's a cure-all. However, it's important that we consume it in our diet because it has its hands involved in many different aspects of health and can potentially help to prevent a myriad of different issues, things with production of red blood cells that its hands are involved in, preserving neurons and those connections within our brain, which is the most important thing that we've been given, is to have a brain that can work well. And as we get older, inevitably we will lose some of those connections, and things, but it helps to have vitamin B12 to help prevent this.